a swimming pool, but instead of water, the swimming pool would be full of hot, wet donuts.
If I have my way, the donut will be a representative of modern Canadian poetry, yeah. I think, like writing about donuts, especially using a form like the sonnet, which is a really formal form, and like you think about sonnets, you think about Shakespeare and John Donne and all these like old-fashioned writers who wrote about love and big ideas like that. Well, I'm writing about donuts, man. Like this is now.
Donuts to me, I think they're the best and the worst. They're just purely hedonistic. And so something that takes that hedonism to a whole other level when you're not even eating the donuts.
A donut is a complete microcosm in itself. And how do you define a donut? Do you define the donut as its entirety, or do you define the donut by the hole in the middle? That's what makes a donut, is that nothingness in the middle.
Donuts are amazing. In writing this series, I did some research, man, and like donuts provide examples for mathematical theories. There's something called topology, which is like an object when spun will grow, but its area will remain the same. And like these, I wrote a poem about old-fashioned donuts, which is sort of like about that notion where you can like expand something over time and over distance, but it still sort of has the same core meaning.
Another fellow who I worked with had brought the donuts in, and he put them down on my desk, and he opened the box, and he reached into the box, and he pulled out this hot, dripping Krispy Kreme donut. I found myself getting quite aroused. Actually, and I really had to hold myself back from just grabbing the donut from him and pulling my shirt up and just rubbing it all over my midsection.
And yeah, I was working on this thesis for school, and I needed to write some poems, and I wanted to write a series of sonnets, and I wrote a poem about a donut, and it turned into a sonnet, and I was like, wow, look at where my head goes when I think about donuts. It was a love poem. Like, it was like, the most lovey poem that I've ever written, and so I was like, all right, well, let's try another donut and see where I go with that, and it was a really lusty poem, and then I had 13 of them.
Now, a box of donuts gets a bunch of people together. They all enjoy the donuts. They have a common experience. And that common experience, that oneness, is what we all crave at some level.
Chocolate on the donuts. One of Boston's parents thought,
Like that too?
Society tells me that it should be tasteful to me and that I should be avoiding foods like donuts at all costs. And I think that's part of the thrill for me sexually is just rubbing donuts all over myself.
I think you could take a powdered donut and sprinkle a little on your lover. Be a very sexy situation.
I don't, I don't get that thrill from anything else, So for me, that's really what it's about, just that slick, crunchy feeling. And and then the licking that happens afterwards obviously is very pleasurable as well, but for me it's more about the foreplay.
I think that these poems came up at a time in my life where I needed to write love poems, man, because I just had my heart broken. Angel. I take a bite and my mouth sprouts wings. A flutter of white icing sugar on my lips, on my cheeks. They go flippity flap while I nibble, nibble. I barely notice the pluck of mousse. This donut's so goodness it's overflowing, spilling out creamy insides that look like a breast. Red jelly, tipped nipple, nice tits I might say if my mouth hadn't gone wholly on me, if I hadn't been caught in the act of consuming an angel. I guess that's piety for you. Somehow I thought there'd be more to it than having a mouthful when the time for transgression arrived. I get to that a lot in the poems too, just that cut out heart in the middle of that perfect circle.
I think the donut is like a war, because we need to eat the world.
If you sit back and look at other people's choices, they get just as much pleasure out of a donut with sprinkles.
I think that if somebody out there believes hard enough that donuts have the potential to save the world, I think they can.